Abundio Carbajal Valenzuela, my father, was a World War II veteran who served with the Army's 36th Division. In basic training, he was ranked a marksman and assigned to the position of forward observer, which meant that he and a small team of men would perilously foray up to and behind the Nazi lines. His division would be known as the Fighting 36, for a good reason. Made up of 50,000 men, it would have a casualty rate of over 27,000. My father would know over 19 months of frontline fighting. He would be awarded the Bronze Star for heroism. He was born in the small town of Bisbee, Arizona, where his father and mother kept vigilance on their cattle ranch and 13 children. Being born in this part of the country prepared him to become a highly fit warrior. From chasing down the family's horses and climbing in the mountainous terrain to mastering the handling and shooting of firearms, he was no less rugged than the earth he grew on. Music played a large part of his life. Both his parents played the guitar and sang. He would show his love and gift for music early, playing any instrument presented him, and his innate love for singing. From his earliest memories, he found that life was no less a rhythm than music, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes joyous, sometimes tragic. And so it was with life, so it was with war.
No one in my platoon could beat me in the 100-yard dash, as I had good training in Bisbee trying to outrun the horses up and down those steep hills.
From his mother Carmen, he learned how to love. From his father Lupe, how to stand strong and fight. His father Lupe was so fearless and firm that other ranchers would hire him to protect their water rights, paying him 5 times the rate of a regular cowboy.
So I went up and down the canyon saying bye to everybody, wherever, the friends and whoever I knew in Bisbee. I said my last goodbye to Mom, which I loved dearly. She cried, so did I, and I walked down the trail. At the last bend, I turned around and waved at her. My darling, darling Mom.
The beach that we're going to land on now looks to be very hot from here. Well, you can't see it too well from our position here on this side of the superstructure, but we can see those geysers from bursting mortar shells and artillery shells being tossed up in the air.
In the Liri Valley, while attacking the Nazis as my father and a small platoon of forward observers crossed the fast-moving Rapido River, he would tragically watch one of his own be swept away and drowned as they took and returned fire.
At a solemn moment in our national history, President Roosevelt has led the American people in prayer for the fighting men.
At Monte Cassino, he would be at the table when the skilled long-knifed Punjabs and French Guoms would bring back their bounty of the left ears from entrenched Nazis up on the mountain. Each left ear brought them a bounty of $5. The battling became so intense, aircraft were called in to reduce the ancient Benedictine abbey to rubble.
The President also brought us, less than an hour ago, the latest word on military operations. Thus far, he said, they have been successful.
My dad would say that war is a terrible but necessary thing. He made one profound and telling statement to me. He said, "Bombs can shatter concrete, bullets can tear into flesh, but they can never demolish the soul."
East coast, that is the coast nearest France, had been shelled by long-range German artillery.
When he landed on the beach of southern France, he and his platoon of forward observers, led by Captain Brown, would work with the French resistance soldiers and Spaniards who were anti-fascist. He would learn the absolute darkest rhythms of war. He would sometimes repeat to me this quote that one of his platoon named Steve would often cite when the rhythm of war grew deep and dark. "Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." As they moved deeper into France, it became known that the Nazis were savagely massacring entire groups of men, women, and children in retaliation to that unlucky village they believed supported the French resistance fighters. War's face had become brutal, vicious, ugly. He knew the savage drumbeat and rhythm of war was pounding. He would sometimes share this quote with me. It was from General Patton. "The object is not to die for your country, but to make the other bastard die for his." It was his platoon's motto.
Hitler is a monster of wickedness, insatiable in his lust for blood and plunder. So now this bloodthirsty gutter snipe must launch his mechanized armies upon new fields of slaughter, pillage and devastation.
He would write the mail to his first cousin Ray Reese from Bisbee, who was fighting in Normandy. It was a great relief to write about the girls back home. He was particularly fond of the Torres sisters, but he was informed that the girls had married, so much for time and distance from home. But in this letter, the horror of war would get personal. It was sent to Ray but returned deceased. Ray Reese was killed in action in France, where he remains buried. Being a forward observer meant sometimes radioing back to artillery to direct them where to place their fire. Other times it meant going behind enemy lines to gather intelligence on their movements. And when behind enemy lines, if an opportunity to capture an officer of rank availed itself, it meant take it. And his platoon did. The French resistance fighters in his platoon were the toughest on this extremity of action. My father, well into his 70s, told me one story, of which I believe there were many. We had a ferocious battle with an enemy. We were able to seize a lieutenant. We were able to move him back behind our line. We took him to our tents. Our tents were away from the other soldiers. A French soldier in our platoon kept asking him for battle information, but the enemy lieutenant would only give his rank and serial number. Unsatisfied, the Frenchman led the lieutenant away from the tent, threw down a shovel, and told the agitated and nervous lieutenant to dig. He began to dig, at which time the French soldier pointed his pistol at him and said, "Give us information or die, right here, right now." At an orphanage in Germany, my father would discuss how war tragically affected children.
Cassius was right. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves.
My darling, darling Mom.
At war's end, my father was in Austria on R&R, enjoying the company of Russian women who were also war-weary. They too were enjoying rest and relaxation. They discussed their participation in a very costly and hard-fought world war. They enjoyed one another's company, happy to be alive and photographable in Austria.
You can say it with emphasis, for it's ringing in millions of hearts all over the world tonight. That glad, glad news that we've been waiting for years. And here it is. Sometimes it hardly seems for a moment that it can be true. We've become so immersed in war. We have lived the war so completely, so intensely, that this transition from one moment to the next into peace seems almost impossible.
It was no longer a time for war. It was a time for peace and a time for love, the love of family.
I went overseas, and the rest is history. And that is all. And this is Cooney A.C. Valenzuela. See you later. Bye-bye.